Welcome to The Naked Podcaster. I'm your host, Jen Taylor. A huge thank you and shout out to NGBN TV for sponsoring this podcast episode. Today we hear from Deneen Joyner. As a child, she could tap into other people's feelings, but learned not to show it. At 47, on her bathroom floor, she decided not to take her own life and instead got up and embraced her ability to heal others. Welcome to The Naked Podcaster. Today I have Deneen Joyner on. How are you today?
I'm wonderful, Jen. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. And your website is deneenjoyner.com. We'll have everything in the show notes, but please jump in and tell us about this because this is so fascinating to me. I'm so excited.
So I'm really excited about this website, Jen. It took me a while to really just pull in all the elements and the essence of the work that I do on behalf of my ancestors, which is Native American soul healing. The soul healing part is been in my family for over a century. And it is something that has been passed down generation to generation. And it got lost a little bit along the way. There was a lag between generations and just not having all of the pieces to the soul healing until I started a healing journey in 2011. And when I did the healing journey, a lot of the channeling abilities that I've had since I was 5 started to really morph into even more. And so during this healing journey, I actually called on God and my ancestors to heal me and to help me with my life, and they did. And because I've been an ultimate journaler my whole life, I've journaled since I was 16 for the most part. And so my journal was a part of this healing journey. And so anytime they would speak to me, which was pretty much the whole entire time, I would just go and get my journal and just take these copious notes that were just really coming on me. And, and there was times when I really didn't know what it all meant, but I knew that it was something juicy. And I said, I better hope, make sure that I get and capture all of this, because I think this is going to be helpful at some point. And it was. So what ended up happening was, once I went through this walk of, uncovering more about who I am, more about my ancestors and who they were, which were highly gifted souls, I knew that I could not just stop with me. Once I became healed from literally them channeling this antidote into my soul. And so I took all of that information and I came up with what most people will see on my website, which is me sharing a lot of the history of who we are and the soul healing practices. And I have different packages that I offer people so that I can work with them one-on-one. And also they can, all of this is self-guided work, which is how it's designed. So unlike therapy on a lot of different levels where you go and sit with somebody for an hour or so and, they're asking you questions and you're going back in time or you're talking in real time. The work that I do is more so empowerment based. And it really is focused more on the person becoming a student of their life. And so my ancestors believe that we all have everything that we need to heal ourselves. And so because we are the ones who were present during, all of the events that have transpired in your life, it really just takes having the tools and the courage to be able to examine them in a different way. And so the website offers me and a lot of the legacy to which I just spoke of. And it's really unique in that a lot of people have not heard about Native American inspired soul healing. And it's really organic. And I think that's what people are looking for now. They really want to get away from, necessarily having to go into therapy or to always, reach for that prescription.
Mhm.
And so this really, allows the person to take control of their life, which is really, paramount to being able to begin in a life of consciousness so that you can start your healing work.
I adopted 2 kids that were Native Alaskan. And so I think we've lost, I think we've lost. When I read that part, I was like, yeah, that's
Yes.
so exciting. We've lost.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me about the marriage of the Native American philosophies and God?
Yes.
I had this great friend that I ran with, and I asked him, and I loved his explanation. So I'm sure, because I know for people who don't know a lot about the Native American heritage, it seems like worlds apart.
Right. And it really isn't. It really isn't. It's Christian based, in that, we all, and that's the funny part, like we all believe really in the same God. We just call it differently. Native American people call God Great Spirit because he is the ultimate Great Spirit. And we definitely believe in his son Jesus and the Holy Spirit. So the Trinity is is the foundation for our beliefs. And we really believe that, again, that a person who encounters pain, who has a great amount of pain in their life, to us that means that they have a great destiny, because we look at pain as preparation for that destiny. So all of the pain, there's 2 types. There's the pain that Great Spirit sends, God, to prepare us for this human journey that we are on. We're spirits first and foremost. And people lose sight of that. And I understand that, just because of what is combated in being a human being, all of the things that happen, in any given day, in any given month or year, you can lose sight that you're a spirit and that you're here for a purpose. We all, have lost sight of that along the way. But my people believe that, we are here just for that destiny. And so anything else really is jeopardizing that destiny when you give into forgetting why you're here. And if you're not open to being prepared, which means the pain is a part of the journey. And the pain is sent for preparation. But what ends up happening is most human beings will, because of their family, they will actually start to duplicate.
Oh, yeah.
Pain. So there's always 2 types of pain that's playing out in any given life at any given time. It's the pain that God sent to prepare you, and it's also the pain that you are duplicating. And so that makes for a pretty nasty life, right? If you got all of that coming at you, you tend to think, like, why me? Like, why is all of this occurring? Why is it that I'm always attracted in this situation, this person, whatever it is, but you're not really conscious and aware that you created half of that. Okay. But the other half is part of the journey and is really there to actually prepare you for something greater. But we get really consumed with the pain in general, and we lose sight. And it's just a vicious cycle. I call it, how your computer buffers. That's what happens, when a person is distracted by the pain. You can't go anywhere because you're so distracted. You're buffering. Your soul is buffering as well. And so you can't move out of that. You can't move ahead. You're stuck. So you hear people say that all the time. I'm stuck. I feel unfulfilled. That's why.
Yeah. I love that you in the email you sent me, you're Native American Nigerian, and you had to try to understand the gifts of bloodlines from 2 very distinct cultures.
Yes.
A little bit ahead of ourselves, but that has so much to do with who you are on your website and how you approach things.
Yes, it is. And so to speak to that, I grew up I started off with two parents. My mother is primarily, all of the people in her family are Native American.
Okay.
And then father is West Nigerian. And so both sides of my family, there was highly gifted healers. And I didn't know that, again, until I started my healing journey. I knew that my mother was Native American. We grew up with a lot of her culture and traditions, which encompasses storytelling and just basically knowing the plight of Native American people and who we are, what we stand for, and having that connection that I just spoke of with the Great Spirit. However, my father's side was lacking because they actually ended their marriage when I was 11. And so I didn't have my father to tell me anything really about that side of the family, the culture and, all of that. I really had to look into that on my own, which I was successful in doing, but it took me a while to do that.
Yeah.
Where I could just, go to my mom and ask her questions. And my mom actually was able to start the process for what I needed on my paternal side because of the fact she was married to my dad for quite some time and she knew his family and his lineage. And so through her, I was able to start, the journey of uncovering who I am, which is what I speak so much about in the work that I do with people. Just knowing your roots, knowing who you are, it makes a huge difference. And I know that there are some people, some listeners who maybe don't have, the blessing of having someone like I did to actually sit down and share family history. But you could, I'm a big proponent of having a DNA test. I love.
Okay.
Yes. And, because that opens the door to really uncovering who you are. That bloodline, can tell you a lot about, your nuances, the things that, that you really love and really don't understand why you love. And, it really speaks to that, those things that, maybe you have always wondered about. The DNA test and ancestry test, I love 23andMe. I'm not being paid by them, but I love them. I have had a DNA test myself probably 6 years ago, and and I still have it, and it updates, and I've been able to locate cousins and a lot of different extended family members, and it helps me really to just understand, even at a more deeper level, a lot of my why questions.
Wow.
And so,
Fantastic.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about your book. I've bought it, but I haven't read it.
Okay.
I'm super excited to read it. It's called Soul Wounds and Sacred Revelations.
Yes.
I know I'm jumping all over the website right now.
No, it's good.
But tell me about it. And I'm so proud that you're an author. So
thank you. I know, from one to another, right?
Well, I'm telling you, you know what it takes. So you're like, oh, bless you for getting that done. Tell me about it. Don't tell me too much because I haven't read it yet, but no.
Okay. All right. So the book really chronicles my journey with hitting rock bottom. So the day that I was actually faced with contemplating ending my life in my bathroom, literally with a handful of pills and a glass of water, because I had struggled for 47 years of my life with carrying a lot of pain, unresolved pain. And so the book actually starts at me in the bathroom with the pills and water and deciding that this was my fate, that I had had enough, that I could no longer carry it anymore. I didn't know what else I could do. There was no more tricks in my bag to pull from. And I thought that this was basically how my life would end, that I would, end it by suicide. And so the book picks up there, and it actually takes you through my decision to not end my life, but to really just find the courage and the love that it really took for myself. To love myself enough not to kill myself was huge.
Yeah.
And so the book takes you through literally what that took for me to go from ground zero to actually get the courage to do something different, which was to surrender my life over to God and ask him to be my teacher. And not only that, but to no longer deny the gifts that I had since I was 5.
Mm.
And so that book really, it's a it's a really good read. It really is, because it really shows people, what that journey is like. And it's not, sugar coated at all. It's raw, it's real. I share, the utmost pain that I had been carrying, and, what it took for me to really examine it and see it for what it was, and to be able to release it so that I could clear my soul enough to actually move forward to my destiny.
Wow. And now you also speak too. So to
Yes,
finish, I mean, I don't know what else you're doing on that website, but I know the book, the speaking, you do a lot of coaching, and
yes,
what
yes,
what's the speaking like? How you're taking like all of this culmination of a lot of information and presenting it.
yes, yes. I love, under that is what I call the storyteller in me,
Hmm.
which was passed down to me literally from my mother. As I mentioned before, my mother used to, bring, I'm daughter number 7. And so my mother would bring all of her daughters. Every evening we would sit down at her feet and she would tell us a story about an ancestor in my family. And so these people to me seemed so far off in the distance, and they didn't feel like people that, were related to me, because they had already lived some time and they had already passed on. And, but to hear my mom speak of them and tell us about, their life and all of the things that they had to face and endure, it was beautiful. And so I have, I believe, that knack for storytelling for sure. And so I like to use that when I'm in the company of an audience, to be able to talk about emotional pain in a way that they've never heard it before, using the foundation of my ancestors and getting them to become more curious about their life. And not only that, but I also share with the soul, the role of the soul, which is really to protect our spirit. So the soul was designed to basically be a guard to the spirit. So when you hear people say, my spirit has been broken, I just feel like my spirit is broken, low, I know that it feels like that, but I want them to know that there is nothing that could ever break your spirit. The soul is standing guard in front of your spirit. And so nothing could ever, penetrate it. Nothing could ever disrupt your spirit. It is a buffer. And the soul also is a recorder. So I share that as well. So it has recorded even before you came. And so that conversation that we had with God before we came into our being, and before we were even placed inside our mother's womb, that conversation was etched on our souls.
Okay.
And so it's because of that that we can never lose sight of it. And so when we feel off, when we feel unfulfilled, when we feel the angst, it's because of that etching. It's because we know deep down inside that we are off course, and we don't know often what to do to get back on course, but we do feel that. We feel that something is not right. And it is the soul trying to recalibrate us, recalibrate our steps, recalibrate our knowing, and trying to awaken us to that consciousness so that we can remember why we're here.
The thing that I love about any kind of energy work, first of all, my favorite people who do energy work are the ones that talk about it through God.
Yes.
There's so many mixed messages about religion and energy work. Like they're two, my husband and I have this disagreement all the time. I'm right. But I'm like, it's the same thing. They're
It is.
the same thing in different words. And most people that I have spoken to use God as the
Oh, for sure. I
right?
couldn't do it without him.
Right.
Yeah. I could not do it without him. All of my gifts come from him, and they have, like I said, they have really matured because of my connection, my embrace, my embrace of them, and just being honored to really understand why they're here, and for me to be able to offer them, to other people who are in the throes of a struggle, or trying to turn their life around, whatever that means for them. Just giving them the tools to be able to do it,
Hmm.
and the encouragement and the hope that is needed for a person to believe that it is possible to live without pain.
And you facilitated most of this, your journey on your own, or found the
Yes.
resources too.
Yes.
For me, working with someone, it's that because energy workers have this thing about how they're like, I'm just facilitating, you're doing the healing. Yeah, but without that facilitation, I
That's
don't
right.
know what to even ask.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yes. I take on the role as a guide, is what I call myself when I'm working with somebody, for that reason, because I want them to know it's a partnership. It really is, and so I'm vested in, making sure that they have the tools and the understanding, because it becomes a lifestyle practice. What I show them and impart to them, it really is a lifestyle practice. It has to become one, because of the fact that you never know when a memory, or a night terror, or whatever it is you want to call them, will, creep up, and you're left to deal with it. And so you have these tools to be able to deal with it, and to actually partner with the energy, is what they learn how to do. So instead of, what most people do, which is basically, they don't face the pain,
Yeah.
or they stuff it down, that's working against it. My ancestors believe that, pain is an energy force. It wants to be honored. And so the way that you honor it is that you acknowledge that it's there. Number one, you acknowledge that it's there, and then you give it permission to tell you whatever it is that you need to know. And it comes in the form of a lesson.
Okay. Wow. Probably have a lot of those I haven't been listening. But
Right.
you're right. I mean, I know when I look at people and I say that person's a volcano, they're just
Yes.
stuffing it down and they're gonna
Yes.
at some point. You can't do that, but you need help with that. How cool. So I want to go back in time so you can share your story leading up to 6 years ago, when you were like tapped out on the floor in your bathroom and deciding something needed to change. So let's go back in time. Start me where you are, where you're comfortable with your story. You're
Okay, sure.
girls, you told me.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
You said you were the youngest of 7 girls.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
All seven, I know. And so my parents tell me this story, that I was not planned. They had used 2 different contraceptives to try to keep me from coming. Can you believe that? But anyway, God had a different reason for me. He knew that I was needed, and so I came anyway. And so here I am. And so, it's telling in knowing that, despite my not being planned, and the lengths that they went through to not have me here, that I'm here, it's apparent that there was a struggle for me on my life. And that's how I looked at it. When they told me that story, and then, what transpired even after, there was always some form of struggle associated with me, and living my life. And, at the age of 5, I started to sense and feel other people's energy surrounding pain.
Mm.
And I didn't really understand how or why I could do this. I knew I had this, this old wisdom. I've always been a wise soul. Even at 5, I knew things that there was no way that I should have known. I was giving out advice, and I mean good advice. I was giving out advice at 5 years old until people told me to stop, because they started to become fearful of what I was saying, And because I was in a child's vessel, they did not receive it well, and I didn't have a filter. So I was really just telling all kinds of stuff that I shouldn't have been, telling, but I was telling it. And so that went on for a while. And then I started to disown my gifts because people were starting to disown me.
It's so hard, and you're a parent. It's so hard for me to embrace the gifts that, like, kids are just so, like you said, unfiltered, right? It's such a beautiful thing.
Yes.
But it's also sometimes not a beautiful thing, or
Yeah.
how to package it in a way. And it's always been so hard. Like, I remember thinking, I'm not going to squash my kids' natural curiosity and abilities and what they want to say until they ask the lady in line why both of her front teeth are black. Or, like
Yes.
you have to balance out, like, not squashing your kids, but making them understand that the presentation or the
That's it.
thing, or it's so hard.
It is hard. It is hard.
Sad.
It is difficult.
Kid that was getting squashed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I learned that I should not share myself on that level. I started to become ashamed of these gifts because I really didn't feel free to talk to anybody about them. How I could do these things, why I knew certain things before they happened, why it felt like things had occurred that didn't occur. So all of these things were playing out, as I grew into my teens. And by the time I was a teenager, I decided that, I'm not even going to say anything anymore. I don't want to feel these things anymore. I really just, I just want to be by myself. And so I started to be a hermit at that point. Literally, I would just go to school and I would come home, and I did not want to really be around anybody, including my sisters. I really did not want to be around anybody. So I really just stayed in my room, or if somebody was, everybody was in one area, then I would go into another area. I really was just starting to get depressed about who I was and not knowing what these gifts were for. I started to feel like I was cursed.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me about your dad too, because that had to have played a pivotal part.
Oh my goodness. Yes. So my dad had been in and out, literally. I can actually probably count on one hand, and that would have been from birth to 11 when he finally decided to leave. The times that I can recall him actually sleeping under our roof. And I would say it was probably maybe 4 times, maybe, might even be less. What he would do is he would come in and out. He was actually like a playboy. He was an entrepreneur, very successful entrepreneur. And he owned a nightclub. And so he was often in the nightclub, and I'm sure meeting all different types of women and womanizing, and, so he was more out than in. And when he was home, he was very volatile, verbally towards my mother and physically abusive towards her too. So I knew all of this. And because I was the youngest, I was pretty much the closest to her. And I could, I was really privy to all of this going on because their room literally was next door to mine.
Okay.
So I would often hear all of the, the fights and the arguments and him accusing her of cheating on him, which really it's him, we all know that game, so that's what he was doing. And I could, overhear this and, and then, he would beat her up and then he would leave. And I was left, to go in and console her, to get a cold cloth, to just try to make her feel better. And if you could imagine just a little girl having to do this countless times and just seeing this, I never knew, that somebody could even hit really somebody else, like adults. I never knew that adults, and not to mention a man hitting a woman, like that was like very scary to me. And that being my mother took it to a whole nother level, So I started to hate him and be angry at him for doing this to my mother, and not being a father. Again, having that old soul wisdom, knowing that this is not what a father does, and knowing that a father is supposed to be present with his children under one roof every night, not just some nights. So I knew all of this. Nobody told me. I knew it.
Right. Just innately.
Yes.
Kids come with such gifts. I know, I mean, we could have a whole conversation about the things that you knew innately as a kid that just made sense to you. You thought everybody thought that or felt that.
Yes.
But then
Yes.
if mine are different, well, I thought these things, if all the kids got together, it would be a much happier world.
Right.
Because in
It would be.
know that it's not right, but you don't have the experience. You can't tap into the years of knowledge, or you don't have that ability to do that, to make that make sense.
Yes.
No, it's not right. So you knew this about your dad, and then you said you weren't as close to your sisters as you started to pull away as you got older. So he's gone.
Yes.
Was that a relief partially?
No, it wasn't. It was a deep sadness, because that was the first time that I realized that parents could leave their children. And, and it became even more a deep sadness when he never really looked back. There was a few times, I would say maybe several months after he decided that he wanted to end his marriage with my mother, and I think it was really just out of he just felt like he should be doing something, that he felt like he wanted to come and pick up me and my sister, who's 5 years above me. He wanted us to come and spend some time with him at his new house with his new wife. And so that was a really emotional situation for me. And I missed him so much that I subjected myself to that. And also I had chronic asthma at the time, which I know was really symbolic of just internalizing all of this, not being able to talk about my emotions and my feelings, and carrying them. So it started to really attack my lungs. And so I had chronic asthma, and I would go to his house, and he had 2 German Shepherds. And so that was not fun for me, for a person who already, cannot breathe, and then to be subjected to dogs and dander and everything else. It just really made it really just difficult for me to visit him. And it took me a while to actually finally decide that I could no longer go to visit him, because I was so sick. Every time I would return home, I would be just so sick. Sometimes I was even hospitalized beyond, not being able to breathe, because I would, just wanted to be in his presence and to be around him. And I finally decided I couldn't do it. And I told my mother, I cannot visit him anymore. I cannot. So it wasn't even, that my mother made the choice for me. I made it. I made the choice not to go. And I believe on some levels in doing that, it made it so it really severed our relationship when I decided not to subject myself anymore. I never, had a conversation with him about why I wasn't coming. I just told him I wasn't coming anymore, and that was pretty much it. And so that was when I was 11, I guess, or so. And, from that time on, I never had really a relationship with him.
And little by little, you're shutting yourself down too.
Yes.
You're detaching from your siblings, you're detaching from people, and it changed the dynamic with your mom too. How did that change when your dad left at your mom's house?
Yeah. So my mom became the sole, breadwinner, so we went from 2 family income to 1. And, and trying to feed all of these children plus herself on a nurse's aide's income was really difficult. She went back to school to become a nurse, but that took some time. So we suffered. We were neglected. No, sugarcoating it. We didn't have what we needed. Forget what we wanted. We didn't have what we needed. My mother had to often decide if she was going to pay, to keep the gas on, or if she was going to go to the grocery store and, and have groceries for a few days. And sometimes she picked groceries, sometimes she picked heat. So, we went out, we went without for I would say most of my childhood. That's what it was like. It was, never knowing what we were going to eat, being embarrassed to not be able to have the things that other children had.
Mhm.
And just, just having that sense of suffering because, one person decided to leave and not, and not be responsible. I really didn't hold him, for leaving. I held him, responsible because he did not take care of his children.
Yeah. Yeah, there's different levels or different issues attached with those different levels. And it changes how you view money and
Oh, for sure.
relationships, because you saw an abusive, neglectful relationship at first.
Yes.
He was just gone. So yeah, you have self-worth at that,
Oh, it was gone. I had none, and I say that in my book. The day that my dad left, he took everything. He took my heart, he took my self-esteem, any value that I had, he took all of that with him. And the reason why I say that is because when it comes to a father and his daughter, or a mother and her son, those dynamics are imperative for us in developing relationships with opposite sex.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't have that to go off of, you don't have a blueprint, then you're making it as you go along. And most of it, whatever you're making up is not the truth, and again, you're attracting in that pain that I said, that we're often, playing off of because we've created it. That's what I was doing, as far as, not having that responsible, loving man in my life as my father, my role model. I didn't have that, so it was difficult for me when it came to having, a real relationship with a man. I can say that I've never had anybody, physically abuse me, or verbally, but I did have someone recently, a marriage that I ended, who was financially abusive towards me.
Mm. It's so interesting how we take our baggage. And I remember a therapist having this seminar about how we learn in our lives as kids what we decide moving forward is unacceptable based on what we've seen. Like physical abuse is a great thing. Like physical abuse is unacceptable. And I want a relationship kind of like this, although we've never seen it. So we're shooting in the dark a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
There's all this gray area in between. We kind of don't know what to do with it. So like you just brought up financial abuse, like you don't see that. You just know that physical abuse isn't okay. And
Yes.
a relationship, then all this stuff in the middle, we have no idea what to do with or how to recognize it. And I remember hearing him say this and thinking, oh, okay, there's gray area. Like,
Yes, for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
End up perpetuating. And I was like, well, I will never perpetuate this. No, you'll do it in a totally different way. He won't hit you. It's going to be financial. You're going to do the same thing though. That's just going to sneak up on you.
It'll be new and improved, right?
Yeah, you're going to 2.0 your childhood. Isn't that news? Oh my gosh. So yes, we tend to all, because, there aren't many like perfect childhoods where I came out of it knowing this is the type of relationship I want. And even
Yes.
you're dating people that we all come with this different baggage that we have
Yes.
together.
Yes.
Fascinating. So you were becoming, at what point did you become aware, like, I can't squash this anymore? Was it bubbling up, this side?
Oh yeah, everything had been bubbling up. The pain, the gifts, my entire life, was really, me developing, these skills and coping methods to be able to try to keep things at bay.
Right.
And, and I learned to do that, like I said, for quite a while, from the time for like 40 years. That's a long time.
Good job. Way to go. Yeah.
Right. Right. Until there was no more room, again, because our soul can only hold but so much room. The pain and trauma takes up the most space within our soul. And so, if you're not clearing it, if you're not honoring it, if you're not healing it, then of course it's going to go into a reservoir until you do. And if and when you do, then you're better off. If you don't, then what will happen is what happened to me, which is that I hit rock bottom because there was no more room left in my soul. And so then that's divine intervention. So God is basically saying it's time to wake up, Deneen, because you've had 40 years and you still have not done anything with this pain. And we need you to do something with it, because we have something waiting for you that's been waiting forever, and we need you to get it. We need you to get it right. We need you to heal. We need you to face everything. And so, it took me a while, even knowing that, even realizing that, okay, so I'm not going to end my life, but now what is this new life going to look like? And how do I get to this new life? And, what is healing going to ask of me completely, and it was a journey. I will say that it took me a little over 3 years, even though maybe it doesn't sound like a lot of time, but it was. When you're in the throes of wanting to heal and needing to heal, 3 years is a long time. Yeah. And, but I stuck to it, and, and thank God I did, because now I understand why I needed to, to heal, why all of the pain had to happen. And, it was definitely to fortify me and for me to be able to now fulfill the destiny of helping others.
What you did the DNA test, that was one thing. What I want to talk about some of the different tools you used and how those made a difference. So we can start with that, because you like I'm so excited that you mentioned that, because I've been very curious. Like, yeah. I don't know what it's going to do. I mean, I think on my dog, because she drives me a little crazy, but like, will this uncover anything about me? It's interesting, but will it be valuable?
I believe it will, because when I actually looked at, like, I had already known, like I said, I already knew, primarily my roots.
Yeah.
I already knew that. However, when I did take the test, I just really just wanted to go deeper with it. I wanted to really just start research, on these groups of Indigenous people that I come from, both sides. I wanted to learn, the language that they speak. I wanted to know, what types of food did they eat? I wanted to know, how do they, what do they feel about God? What are their beliefs? And what I uncovered was a lot of their ancient beliefs were innate for me. It was just like I was blown away a lot of the similarities that were already a part of who I am, and just understanding really just the traditions, the different cultural traditions that each of these distinct people had, and how they intersect a lot. They really revere Holy Spirit and that connection, and just being open sources to being able to be spoken to by God, and being open to that, and taking that information and using it for their highest good. When it comes to planting, their crops, to birthing their children, to prophesizing about something that was going to happen and preparing for that. And so all of these things, were just like, wow, and I think that if you were to do, a DNA test, I think that it would definitely give you your bloodlines for sure.
Yeah.
It will allow you to become more curious about those people. And, and then it would give you, just basically just more to go off of, more than just saying, what you've been saying, who you are up until now. I think it'll take you deeper.
And
for
that's
sure.
what it did for you. I find that, you had me at tradition. So for people, this might be for you, but I was really big when I started having kids at having traditions, so that, because that created memories that they could take
Yes.
when they moved out on their own. And so to think about it in that perspective, like, that makes my brain click, where it might do something else for someone
For
else.
somebody else. Yes. I think people will find their own way when they have, a DNA test, when they get their results. I think that it will trigger something, and they will know just instinctively, like, which way they want to take things. I also used it to uncover I wanted to find out their, as much as I could, about their emotional framework. How did they express their emotions? When they were dealing with an event that was traumatic or painful, what did that look like? What did that feel like? And how did they adopt whatever it was? How did they take that on? And and what I have discovered on both sides of my family, like I said, pain was really revered. It's not like it is here. Where we all run from it. We're uncomfortable talking about it. We're uncomfortable crying, or sharing, anything that has to do with something that is related to pain. We look at it differently. We look at it as, something to um, uphold. If somebody is that thing that's going on, it's something that they need to uncover and discover about themselves. And will they be courageous enough to face that? If God gives that to you, if he sends that into your life, then it means that there is a purpose for it, and that you might not know what it is right now, but if you stay the course and you allow it to shape you and mold you into what it is that is waiting for you, you will discover that later on.
Right.
But most people don't have those abilities. And I understand that, because even though I came from these two cultures who highly revere it, I didn't have that knowing for myself until I actually got still and got quiet and went back in time and realized where I came from and how my people actually endured so much more greater than I did.
I know that you hit the point where you were on the floor and you were suicidal and you decided to make a change. And then that was part of the change, which is really fascinating to me. What else did you do in that 3 years of discovery prior to launching the business and completely changing this? What were the other things that were the most helpful for you in getting through everything?
So I was a social worker for about 18 years. And so I actually started to use a lot of my case management skills on myself, which was like incredible. I decided to actually look at the journals that I had mentioned to you, that I had actually that chronicle pretty much my whole entire life. And I decided to remove myself in being judgmental. So I took all of the elements of myself out of the picture. And I decided to look at these journals the way that I would look at somebody who I had been assigned to. And so I looked at them with an open heart and open mind. And so I started to really just approach it in that fascination and that curiosity. I wanted to know first who this woman was. Where did she come from? What type of family did she grow up in? And I was able to fact gather and get all of that information, just being curious and wanting to know who is this woman, and who were the people that she was around when she was growing up. and how she came to be. And I started to use that more and more, basically just taking myself out. And I often offer that to people I work with, in being, taking the judgment part of it, taking the shame, taking the blame, all of those elements out of it. When you become a student of your life, which is what I did, and which is what I empower the people that I work with to do, you actually take all of those elements out and you see your life in a different way, because you're really literally starting to look at your life for clues.
That is so cool. Okay.
So if you're able to do that, if you're able to, really just, remove yourself out of it, if you will, and actually approach it that I'm actually a student now of my life. So I want to learn everything that I can about myself. And in doing that, I have all of the answers because I was there. And so, you're starting to actually unravel, and you're actually starting to look for pieces to the puzzle. And, most people want to know, how they came to be as far as their pain. Why is it so much? Why have I decided to carry it? You can get those answers by actually just studying your first family, which is the family you grew up in. A lot of what we have adopted has been unconscious.
Yeah.
But if you're able to sit down and actually do what I call a soul map, what actually starts to look at your first family and those emotions, what did it feel like when certain things occurred? Who said what? What was the unspoken rules? All of these things factor into how we are showing up in real time right now, unknowingly. And so it was basically, for me, going backwards. You have to go back in order to gather all of this information, but not necessarily going back to relive the events that caused you the pain. That's later on. But really, you're just going back to fact gather as to how my emotional framework came to be.
Wow. I think that's so fascinating. So when you bring people into your, I'm so glad you mentioned that you were a social worker, because I knew that, and I had completely backfired that whole fact. Yeah, you actually, finished some degrees and did these jobs. It wasn't just but the story's so fascinating that I completely forgot about that.
Right.
That you used your case management skills in order to do. I love that. I love the skill sets that we build through our lives now.
Yes.
Through work, that we don't realize we can use in all these other ways. So I love that you did that. And now for years you switched your case management from social work to embrace your past ancestry.
Yes.
All those, what a great marriage.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah. It's so powerful, Jen. I mean, I can't even articulate the way that I feel right now from, healing in 2014. And that was really just the beginning of, my journey, my new journey, with really just, then I had to really just integrate everything into a new way. Like you said, all of the skills, everything that I have, encountered, all of my experiences, personal, professional, all of my skills, all of my talents, all of my gifts, everything that I am is what I bring to the table now in the business that I do. And it's in honor of, two legacies, literally, of people, who, was waiting on me really to take up the torch, because, I'm the heir to my family's soul healing legacy. And so, it's more than just me having a business.
Yeah.
And it's more than me saying it's a family business. This has been going on for a century now, with the soul healing. And, my having these abilities, I have to share quickly that, even that took on, it was really challenging at first for my ancestors, because I can still hear them. I channel, I meditate and talk to them. and they talked to me. And so they had difficulty being in the 21st century, allowing me to do certain things the way that I have been doing, like with the social media, with the website, and just being so visible. To them, all of that is superficial.
Yeah.
So it's difficult. It's a difficult line that I'm crossing.
Yeah.
But they trust me so much. They trust me. They entrusted this role to me, and they understand that I have to do certain things in a different way now.
Yeah.
But I can still sense and feel some heaviness and reservation, as I move forward and do certain things.
Do you have a relationship with your parents, either of them? And what about your sisters?
My mother is still living. She's 90. So we're very close. My father actually passed 3 years ago. And that was devastating because, as I mentioned, I didn't have that relationship with him ever again from childhood. And, and a few of my siblings, kept in touch with him off and on. So I always knew where he was and what he was doing. And so then when he became ill, I actually knew the days leading up to it that he was about to die without anybody even telling me. And I reached out to my sisters and I actually said that he's about to pass. So, you should prepare for it. And and it happened like the next day. As far as my sisters, yes, I have a good relationship with them. I am the black sheep of the family. I have to say that. So, I fit in as much as they will allow me to, and as much as I will allow myself. When you sense and feel that you're the black sheep, and you don't always feel the receptive love that that you deserve, you kind of just shun away and just kind of keep yourself away just to protect yourself. So I've learned to do that, and I'm trying to do better when it comes to that now, because now I understand why I had to be the black sheep, because I was actually being prepared for the role that I have now. So it's been a learning curve for me to take all of these experiences and now, go back and, even heal a lot of the relationships, in my family because of it.
Yeah. So people know how to find you. Let's wrap up like what you would have told your younger self, or that feeling you have for that person who comes to you feeling that devastation, like I don't know how to handle this pain. And what are those steps? Because you also, from social work, I know personally, learned compassion and empathy and to look at the bigger picture. And so how do you best help people that are hearing this and wanting to come to you and make some sort of change but feel a little lost within that?
I would tell them that the feeling that, that they're tapping into, that inner turmoil and the dialogue that's telling them that, what's the use? I would tell them to shut that down immediately. And because of the fact that they are tapping into the angst and the turmoil, is really the sign that they need, that there is something better for them. They don't have the answers, and that's okay. It's okay to say that you don't know, but I do know. And I know that I have helped a lot of people go from the point of giving up, ground zero, feeling stuck and unfulfilled and feeling depressed. And within one conversation, they have hope and belief that they can do it. So I would say that, if they feel that struggle, that's the sign that's really spurring you on, that there is something more. And I know it's hard to really believe that the struggle is really something telling you that there's something greater inside you. But trust me, it is. I've been there before. I know what it feels like. And look at me now. This is the happiest I've ever been in my life. And so if it was not true, I would not even say it, but it is.
Yeah, it's getting past that resistance, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Deneen, thank you so much for being on. This was so
Oh,
great.
thank you for having me, Jen.
Thank you for joining today. It's been a pleasure. You can find me at momof18.com and on social media platforms as Mom of 18. A huge thank you to NGBN TV for sponsoring this podcast episode.